Wild Talk is brought to you by Trapper Gourds, the Wild TV Canada app, and these fine sponsors.
Welcome to another episode of Wild Talk. Today, Scott and I are joined by Sam Halabi and Michelle Van Dam. As you all know, we just wrapped another season of Bowzone Live. Amazing. Scott, you were a part of Bowzone Live. You want to give us a little bit of a preview of what we're in for today?
Well, I can tell you about my season. There was a lot of waiting, a lot of cold, a few screw-ups, and now I'm going to, I think I'm probably going to try and barbecue my tags instead of putting them in the oven and cooking them like a roast. All kidding aside, though, Sam and Michelle shot some great whitetails this year, and we're going to catch up with them during this episode. And Joe is actually going to do something for all of our viewers this time around as well. He is going to teach us how to properly drive from the back seat of a vehicle once you've removed the front seat, because, well, you know, Joe's legs are so long. That's where he's got a pilot from, is the back seat. So thanks, Joe, for that, and we're looking forward to hearing how that happens.
Yeah, Scott, I'll pull out that front seat, and don't you worry, I'll wrap it up with a big shiny bow and send it over to you for Christmas so you can finally see over the dash in your pickup.
Well, that'd be a treat, actually, because I usually can't see where I'm going. I usually have to wait until my passenger screams to know that I'm about to hit somebody, because I just can't see. So
I know it's been tough for you since they stopped sending out phone books, so I'm happy to help you out.
It is. You know, the yellow pages don't have the 6 inches of lift anymore. They're like this thick now, so you got to use like 20 of them. All kidding aside, Joe, you just came back from, Los Cabos, I think you said?
Yes, sir, Los Cabos, just about 40 minutes down the coast from Cabos right there, and had a great little family getaway. It was nice. Welcome reprieve from this freezing cold that moved in just at the tail end of season, so... yeah, got a little bit of a tan, some time on the beach, and even managed to sneak away for a bit of a fishing trip.
Nice. You caught a, striped marlin, I think it was?
Yeah, I got lucky. We headed out with this one charter, went around the coast, and landed my first striped marlin. Never caught a marlin before, didn't know what I was in for, but man, can those suckers fight, and do they put on a show. Just breaching, splashing around. It was about a half hour, 40-minute fight. I actually got some cool footage. We can show it right here in a minute. And unfortunately, I didn't catch on film, was right as I was getting the fish on the boat. And we got our pictures, tossed the fish back in the water. It was a catch and release. Spun the boat around, and there was a pod of humpback whales fully breaching, like something right out of National Geographic's, like coming right up, spinning sideways, cool. Splashing down. But we had already put our cameras away at that point, so we didn't get any footage of that one.
You know, so that's something that I've never fished for, but it's definitely on my bucket list, that's for sure.
I would highly, highly recommend it if you get a chance to get down there. Beautiful trip. And again, it's just a quick side trip, beautiful scenery, and one heck of a fight.
And you've had a busy year between Scotland and all over the place, and Mexico. At least you were able to take your wife and your son with you this time, because I'm sure they were probably wondering what you look like after all the time you've been away.
It's tough, you know, you're gone on the road a lot, but when I am home, I work from home here, so I get to spend a lot of time with them. And this was great to finally be able to share it with them, and hopefully soon enough, I'll be able to share a lot of trips with Junior. So fingers crossed he loves the adventures and outdoors, and I'll have him along on a lot of these trips.
Well, Joe, you said you had some great footage, so we're going to throw to that quick. We're going to hit a commercial break, and then we're going to be back with our first guests here on Wild Talk.
That's a nice one. Wow. How's the arm, Joe? I am dying right now. Oh, good thing you go to the gym. Look at that. Right, come on. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Wait, we put in portrait. Come on. Release it. 1, 2, 3. Wow! Yeah, man.
Welcome back to Wild Talk. We are joined by Sam Halabi. Now, Sam was one of our hunters on Bowzone Live this year. Sam, welcome to Wild Talk.
Great to be here. Thank you.
How you doing this morning?
Good. Really good.
Well, thank you for joining us. And I believe we have Joe Hightower, Eppele, joining us. Joe, are you with us?
Hey, Scott. Hey, Sam. Happy to be here. Good to hear from you. Sam, congratulations on an awesome hunt. I saw the clip just a little bit ago, and we're going to be sharing it here in a minute. And I can't wait to get the breakdown from you here as we go along.
Thank you.
That's awesome. Well, why don't we just jump right into it? Sam, you've been bow hunting since dirt was clean. How long have you been bow hunting for?
I started doing it seriously around the age of 20. I started when I was a little younger, but I never took it to be really serious, just for scouting. But by the time I got to age 20, I was well into it, and by the time I was 21, I was already taking a bighorn sheep with it. So,
Wow.
Yeah, my first animal wasn't a whitetail; it was a sheep. It set my career off. So it's been almost 40-something years I've been bow hunting.
I'd say you started your bow hunting career with a bang. Really? Your first animal was a bighorn sheep?
Correct, yeah.
So that wasn't in Banff or Canmore or anything like that, was it? I mean, all kidding aside, Sam, that's an incredible accomplishment. Most bow hunters will never harvest a bighorn sheep with their bow in their bow hunting career ever. Just ever. So what area did you shoot that sheep in, and what year?
That was in the Catamount area.
Okay.
Well, it would have been in the early 80s.
So you were using the technology back then that was a thunderous 210 feet per second with 14-inch arrows with a giant overdraw. And
Yeah, I think I was using a Martin Jaguar, the really compact overdraw. So one of the first overdraw bows that came in, that you had to use every ounce of energy you could to pull them back. It was unbelievable. Yeah.
Yes. I actually have a Martin Jaguar hanging on the wall in my garage.
Yeah. That makes two of us. Mine's collecting dust there as well, in the museum.
Perfect. Yep. You don't ever want to touch it just in case the string breaks, right? So, tell us about the hunt this year, Sam, on Bowzone Live. We watched it on the show. We're going to check out a clip here in a few minutes. But how'd it go down? What happened?
Just a little bit of a background. It had been a long season for me. I mean, I take bow hunting pretty serious. I'm right in the midst of it where I live. So I'm able to hunt quite a bit, almost every day in the evenings at least. That's what I prefer. But as it comes down to the November, it gets to be one of those things where you got to sit all day. And I had just gone through a couple of weeks where the weather was just brutal. It was really cold at the beginning of November, and I don't do well with cold. I have to have a blind, and even then I probably have to have a heater in there to stay warm enough to just survive. So now we're getting down to the last day, and I had really given up a lot of hope that I would get one, at least not one on my hit list. I've seen a lot of deer all fall, but I usually pick one, maybe two that I target, and those ones were getting very difficult to get to, just because I can't get to some of the spots that I need to when there's snow on the ground. It's just pretty difficult. So so I went to a different. I had hunted for my number one on the list in a backfield on my neighbor's, and I pretty well on the very last day I gave up because it was too hard to get to that spot, and I went to a blind that is very secluded and wooded, and there's lots of action in there when the rut's full bore, and just basically from morning till afternoon I just rattled all day long, and grunt called and doe bleated with very little results till about the afternoon when when the one I called Weirdo came in, and he came right through my shooting lanes and then turned abruptly. He must have heard me, and he caught me off guard is what he did. I think I was texting on Bowzone Live group on WhatsApp
No.
at the time. He turned straight away and walked right out of my life, and he looked really good. He looked really wide from the back end, and I had seen him a few times, and I didn't really think he was that big, but with only 2 hours to go, he was looking pretty good. So he disappeared, and I kept grunting and basically doe bleeding, and about a half an hour later, he circled back with a couple of does. He came right down the trail that I'm on, and right in and caught me again where I was actually thinking about taking a doe, if you can imagine. I should keep that to myself. But
Yeah, I was with you there, Sam. I was out in the same weather that you were, and it was cold. Pretty sure that if something decent would have walked by, I probably would have put an arrow in it. I was so cold. It was bad. I didn't want to have anything to do with hunting at that point, but we were there, and you got the buzzer beater.
Yeah, so that's kind of my mind frame at the time was, yeah, that doe's looking pretty good, and it's over on my left side. So I just wanted to line up on it and at least get my crosshairs, on it and see if I could get it. And then when I did that, of course, he comes right down the trail on my right side. Now I've got to move my rig, which is very noisy, all the way over to the right side, which I did. I waited till he's behind a big fat tree, but he heard me and popped his head up, but he didn't know what he was hearing. And then he eventually stepped right in my shooting lane. And I waited and waited as long as I could until he was distracted, and then let the shot go. And right where I was aiming, he ran maybe 50 yards, did a little button hook, and he was down for the count.
Oh, beautiful. Now, I watched the shot and the aftermath, and it was all picture perfect. You couldn't have planned it any better if you'd tried. So congrats on an amazing buck. Sam, that was awesome. The buzzer beater.
Absolutely. Congratulations.
Yeah.
That's they don't always read the script like that, and in the shot and the clip here that we're going to share after this next commercial break, everybody gets to see just how perfectly it played out for you there.
Great. Yeah, no, I know that. Yeah. They don't read the script most of the time, really. But this one, wow. It turns out, though, after we looked at him a little closer, he may have been blind in the left eye, and he had some sort of deformity on his left side. So I took advantage of a disadvantaged deer, I think.
Sam, you should have just called him Lucky.
Lucky instead of Weirdo, yeah.
Looks like we're going to have to cut to commercial break right now, guys. We'll be right back after this short break. Welcome back to Wild Talk. We have been teasing you guys talking about this beautiful whitetail that Sam put down, and we've got it all on video. So right now we're going to cut to this clip, not make you guys wait any longer, and then we'll be back with Sam to ask him a few questions.
Hi there, Sam Halabi here. Well, we're down to the last few hours on the last day of the season here in Bowzone, Edmonton Bowzone, on Bowzone Live. I'm hoping that these last few magical hours will come through with a big buck, but not sure. Beautiful conditions, light wind, snow falling, so very quiet. It's almost magical. I'll keep you posted and let you know. Stay tuned. Sam out. Well, I'm back at the house with some good news. I was able to rattle in a buck I called Weirdo for the second time today. And on the second time, he finally actually gave me a broadside shot. I didn't think I was going to get a shot, but just a little bit after 3 o'clock this afternoon, I was able to put a bolt through Weirdo, and he ran about 60 yards and fell right in my view. So there's good news. The freezer will be full. Maybe there'll be a skull plate for it, and I'm a happy guy today.
Like I said before, that shot couldn't have been any better and executed any more perfectly than it was, Sam. Great job. For the new bow hunters out there, we don't have a whole lot of time left, so for the new bow hunters out there, you've been bow hunting since, pretty much since dirt was clean. What are the top 2 tips you can give a brand new bow hunter for bow hunting white-tailed deer? Let's hear Sam's top 2.
Top 2. Well, I would say the very first one, I think if you aren't set up in the right spot, you're wasting your time. You have to have whatever you're pursuing. If you're happy with a middle-class whitetail, and first of all, you have to find them, and you have to put yourself in a good spot. And that applies to almost anything you're hunting. I mean, that's a simple one. But the very top one is also, if the wind is wrong with bow hunting, I have 2, an Ozonics and I have an Ionics that work really well in the blind. So there is sometimes where there's a slight wind, you can get away with a bad wind. But generally, I don't hunt a spot unless the wind is perfect for me. And that's been the key to my success, I think, is I set up a whole bunch of blinds, and depending on the wind location, I go to those blinds that work. So those are the 2 things I'd say recommend for somebody starting out. After 40-something years of doing it wrong, save yourself a lot of frustration.
Oh, I'm sure they'll still have frustration.
Yeah.
I still do. I know you still do. So, Awesome. Well, Sam, thank you so much for joining us today. It was a real pleasure, as always, to have you on the show, and we'll see you again.
I'm sure you will. Thank you very much for having me on.
Welcome back to Wild Talk. We now have a really great segment from Logan Johnson, another Bowzone Live participant this year, and he's going to show us how to break down the rear quarter of a deer. Take it away, Logan.
Hey everyone, it's Logan Johnson. Now the work starts. Hunting season is officially over. My meat has been aging in my cooler for approximately 10 days. So we're gonna go over a little bit of butchering and meat cutting today. So what we're working on right now is the hind quarter from a white-tailed deer. So when you're breaking down the meat, you can see how every muscle group is divided by some connective tissues. You just slowly run your blade along, peel back with a little bit of pressure. Cut it off the bone wherever it attaches to. And you don't need to be an expert to do this. A lot of people find cutting their own meat to be a little bit intimidating, but in the long run, you'll enjoy it. It adds to kind of the hunting way of life. You know what's going in your meat, around the bone. Sometimes I dig my finger in there, kind of gives me a good starting point. So this is a gland, you can tell because it's surrounded by fat. You want to try not to cut through that. I like to take some of these veins and other ligaments and things out as well. I just slide my knife under it. And I'll get as much as I can up to this point. If you happen to nick the gland, just clean your knife, clean whatever it touched. You'll be okay. You can see fat lines usually indicate different muscles. You can get the tri-tip up at the top. You can See if you just put a little bit of pressure, everything separates almost by itself. You can feel with your fingers, this is kind of getting into the back pelvis because of the way I quartered it up. If you run your knife right beside the bone, then you'll find that seam again. Sometimes it takes a little bit of flipping and maneuvering around, but again, you just look for those seam lines. See how it almost falls apart. And this is the sirloin tip, sometimes called a ball roast as well. It's a great piece of meat to slow cook with some veggies. It's kind of wrapped around the bone, so you just keep on working your knife tip around that femur. There you have an excellent piece of meat. We'll clean it up after. And here's your shank. So I like to cut the tendon up a little higher, right down to the bone. Then very similar to the sirloin tip, you just slide your knife, guide it around the bone. Just like this. So this isn't a very tender piece of meat, but it's excellent for slow cooking. It's all in how you cook wild game. It does tend to dry out fairly fast due to the low fat content, but a shank cooked the right way is pretty hard to beat. Another good cut of meat right here. Again, using the tip of the knife to go along bone structure. Awesome. We're pretty much done with this hind quarter. Clean it up a little bit. Get a couple more chunks of trim meat off of there. We have our big pieces of meat here. So this is the eye of round. It is a long, almost corded piece of meat, long skinny piece of meat. And we have our bottom round right here, and then our top round is a little thicker. That's how I tell them apart. And then our sirloin tip. So again, for cleaning them off, I take all this silver skin off by just slowly working my knife under, wasting as little meat as possible. You can leave some of that on. I just find if you're spicing up your food before you cook it, or while you're cooking it, the spices sink into the meat better if it's right down to the bare fresh meat. The cleaner you keep everything, the easier it is through all these butchering steps. So right from the shot to field dressing, the more time you take to make sure there's no hair and other debris and excess blood, things like that, the better your meat's gonna turn out. So this, another example, this side here is really thin. If you end up throwing this on the barbecue, you're just gonna dry this out or burn it, so I like to cut it back a little bit. You can see all the tendons that run through this little piece of meat. I prefer to take all that stuff out before I run it through my grinder. Nothing worse than getting a really chewy piece and a stick of pepperoni or whatever you're making. So I like to take my time and just keep the good stuff. Well, we dissected a rear quarter of a white-tailed deer. Here is all our pieces of meat, All this cutting has made me hungry, and I can't wait to cook up some venison. I hope you learned a little bit today, and don't be scared to try this yourself. You're gonna love it.
And welcome back to Wild Talk. We are joined now by Michelle Van Dam. Phenomenally successful season, Michelle. Would you like to tell us a little bit about your time on Bowzone Live this year?
Yeah, sure. Hi guys, thanks for having me. My season this past year was it was a lot of fun. I had a great year, probably my best yet as far as my learning experiences go. Being more independent out in the field, and learning about deer a little more, and just kind of figuring it all out for myself and becoming a more independent hunter. So
You certainly got it figured out, because the deer you shot this year was awesome, first of all. And second of all, everybody's going to want to know how you figured out where that deer was going to stop and where to place their game cameras to get the video of the shot coming through the deer on the other side before he runs away. So how did you figure that out?
yeah, so I put in a lot of time this year. I got some new permission on some property that I kind of knew about a few years ago. I sat at a couple times, so I kind of knew the general landscape. I knew it was a good spot, and when I asked for permission again a few years later, I really invested my time into figuring the land out and figuring out how they travel and figuring out where they're bedding and where they're feeding, even at different times throughout the season, right? So through the spring and the summer, and they slowly transition to different spots. And I put out probably 5 cameras. Wish I could have put out more, because that is kind of your, that's what helps you the most in figuring out their travel patterns and where they're going and when. So yeah, so I had 5 cameras out, and I spent any extra time I had going out and scouting, and even kind of going out beyond my where I was planning on hunting, just to kind of really figure out the bigger picture of things and how things lied, and where they were coming from, and I guess where the density was greater, right? Density of the deer was a little greater and stuff. So yeah, just slowly shifting my cameras around, and then really kind of honing in on those hot spots, I guess, of where they were traveling. And that was one of them. It was one spot that I decided to put a camera on this kind of, it's a little bit of a nook from where they feed. And typically, deer wouldn't pop out and cross a field. Like some of their trails were going in behind into the bush, or going through the bush to their feed. But this one spot, because it was so narrow on the crop, they would cut across it. There was a really high traffic highway cutting across it. So it was great opportunity for me, because it was wide open, essentially. And so yeah, I put up a tree stand there, and it worked out in my favor in the end.
It sure did. It was a perfect spot. You caught the pinch point in the travel route between their bedding and their feed, and that was the premium placement for that spot. And also, I made a comment about this just a few minutes ago, but you had your game camera set up kind of on the other side, and you were, I believe in the WhatsApp chat there, you had said, unbeknownst to you, you actually caught the shot coming through your deer and going into the ground on the other side with your game camera video.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. And I actually didn't realize that even captured video until about maybe 5 days after my hunt. I knew I got a photo because the photo was sent to my cell phone, but I didn't realize I got the video. So the model that I have of that camera doesn't send text videos, but it sends text photos. But I did set it to that setting, so I got a pretty sweet video of the eggs. Yeah.
Well, that was very cool. Well, let's go. Let's check out your whitetail hunt from season 3 of Bowzone Live here just a couple of weeks ago.
Well, there he is. I think I've passed up a couple bucks that were a little bigger than him, but that's okay. I enjoy the sport. I love doing this. It's a beautiful day. I had a great opportunity, and I took it.
And what a shot that was. Amazing footage, Michelle. We'll be right back. We got a lot of questions for you, but first we have to go to this commercial break. And welcome back to Wild Talk. Michelle, again, phenomenal footage. I cannot believe you caught that from those angles. You spoke a little bit about using the trail cameras and how that's so important to your hunting style in the Edmonton Bowzone. Do you want to give us a little bit of a breakdown of how you've adapted your hunting style from the Bowzone versus some of the other areas you hunt?
So you definitely have a lot less land to scout out, which can be a benefit because it's hard to cover a lot of land, you know, with you just being one person, and I have limited amount of cameras. So that is one benefit for sure. Another benefit for me is that I can visit it more often as well because it's closer to home. And, you know, it's easier for me to get out there during the shorter days, you know, when I have kids and supper and all that stuff. So that makes life easier for me as well to be out there. More opportunity on mature bucks, I find. I find there's really good opportunity to target mature bucks in Bowzone as well. So I love that whole homework assignment that I've kind of been really trying to learn and focus on in the last year or two is you know, patterning them, learning their behavior, why they do certain things, where they go, you know, most ideal, like where they bed, and just figuring all those things out.
And Michelle, you mentioned kids, and I saw a clip. You actually had your son out, Wyatt, doing a little bit of hunting. You like to get them involved as well at time to time. Were they much help for you this year with your scouting and getting ready for the season?
Oh yeah, they are. I'll bring them out. Like, so when we scout and walk trails, it's great, right? Like, it's better than being in a trail system in town, in my opinion, because I can teach them as we're out in the bush. They can point things out to me that they see, great learning opportunities. And I find it more peaceful as well. And I find that when you're out in nature and pure kind of in its raw form, I feel like there's almost a deeper connection with who you spend time with out there too, right? And so, yeah, they help me a lot. So they'll help me with passing things while I set up tree stands or taking them down or moving cameras, changing batteries. Yeah, they're involved in it all. And yeah, I think it's great because they learn when they're out there each time.
You know, I remember taking James, my son, out when he was like 3-4 years old is when he started hunting with me. And, you know, he spent years and years tagging along. I even got a custom tree stand harness for him when he was like 5, so he could sit in the tree stand with me and he was safe. Lots of ground blind and lots of hiking. It's so important to get the little ones involved in the outdoors, I think. Less PS4 and PS5 and iPad time, and more time, you know, learning about the actual world they live in instead of staring at a screen, right?
Most definitely.
As somebody who grew up hunting and fishing with my parents and being out there from a young age, as early as 3 or 4, I can say that the memories you guys are creating right now are completely invaluable, even on some of those days where you're just checking trail cameras. And as a new father as well, I can't wait to one day be able to introduce my son to that as well. So that's really special what you're doing, and I'm happy to hear that you're getting them involved as well.
Yeah, I agree with the memory thing too, is that crosses my mind when I'm out there sometimes, you know, when we have a really cool moment together. I see, like, I think of that, like, this is something they're going to remember forever, and they're going to have this experience that they can tell a story about. And not a lot of kids get that opportunity, I don't think. So
Not enough.
yeah.
Yep, very true.
The extent of my hunting experience with my kids in like actually hunting, we've just done ground blinds and spot and stalks for moose or I don't know if we've done elk, actually, mostly moose, and then ground blinds for deer. But I haven't gotten my kids up into a tree stand yet, which I'm really looking forward to, actually, and I might even look at doing next year. Like, I think that'd be a lot of fun, getting them up there beside you and involved, and maybe even being the cameraman kind of thing. I think that'd be really cool.
They'll certainly have big shoes to fill with regards to cameraman and camera operator based on the footage that you were able to get this year. And unfortunately, that wraps up our time for you here on the show this week. But thank you so much for joining us. And hopefully we have some more chats later on, and especially after next year when you've been able to take your kids up in the tree stand.
Yeah. Thanks.
Thanks so much for joining us, Michelle.
You're very welcome. Anytime.
And welcome back. Just for you guys today, a special preview of the best moments of Season 3 of Bowzone Live.
Nice big whitetail, bow and arrow in Edmonton Bowzone. You can't really ask for anything more than that. I mean, holy moly, what a buck. We were on our way to the first stand, and we're gonna go try and shoot a Saskatchewan whitetail with a bow and arrow. Hey. I got a nice archery whitetail. It's my first archery whitetail in Saskatchewan. The annihilated broadheads crushed another awesome animal. Hey. I just shot a buck. This was the best deer that was there, the best deer we had on camera. Ma, ma.
2022 whitetail deer. I'm super excited. Super pumped to be here on Bowzone Live.
I'm just getting ready to head out. We got 4 days left, so it's a grind. That was the calmest shot I feel like I've ever taken. Well, there he is. I am grateful, thankful for the opportunity.
Gotta find these big bucks, they gotta be somewhere. Well, I just shot my buck. It just happens that fast.
Well, folks, here he is. This is it. My 2022 whitetail tag folded.
He's down, baby. Let's go.
Just crumpled the buck.
We're in the last 4 days of November, and Steve knocked down a nice buck. Congrats. Well, our work begins. You bet.
Oh, yes. Look at the mass on this thing. That's why I call him wide load. He's got big, heavy beams. And all these couple kickers here. The mass is unbelievable. Wide load is the right name.
All right, so that brings us to the end of another episode of Wild Talk, Joe. We learned some pretty crazy things about bow hunting whitetails in the Edmonton Bowzone. We learned how to break down the hind quarter of a deer. What was your takeaway from today? What was that tidbit that you didn't know before that now you know and it's going to help you become a better hunter?
Two top takeaways I have is number one, I need to get my tail over to the Edmonton Bowzone and sit in a tree stand because it looks like a great spot to hunt. It's a tough spot, but it looks like it's a lot of fun. And number two, I mean, there are some big bucks stomping around there, but it's not easy. And we had some great hosts out there for Bowzone Live this year, and we were pretty fortunate to get some of those shots on camera. So, yeah, those would be my two.
No, we were for sure.
My two takeaways. How about yourself?
You know what? I think the best takeaway from this episode of Wild Talk is Sam's comment about play in the wind. That wind in the Edmonton Bowzone, well, anywhere you hunt, the wind is it's paramount. It's the most important piece that you need to pay attention to. You know, I've got fields and areas in the Edmonton Bowzone where I have stands set up in the same area, and I'll sit a specific stand based on the wind, whatever direction the wind's coming from. I mean, if it's swirling, obviously, there's nothing you could do. You just hope for the best. But, you know, the wind, playing the wind is one of the most important things that you can do when you're hunting any species of animal. So, and the other thing for me was the fact that Sam, his first animal that he ever harvested with a bow was a bighorn sheep. Most bow hunters will never do that in their entire life. So that was super cool.
That was surprising. I mean, I think we could have talked to either guest today for the full hour, and we have a lot of questions left on the table for them. But I mean, kicking your career off with a bighorn with your bow, that's impressive.
I know, it's crazy. Well, maybe we'll have Sam back and we'll get him to tell us an hour's worth of war stories and stories about hunting and the animals he's harvested over the years. But that's all there is for today, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us on Wild Talk, and we'll see you next week with an all-new episode.
Wild Talk is brought to you by Trapper Gourds, the Wild TV Canada app, and these fine sponsors.